Hello, thank you for listening. My name is Günther Richter, and I want to tell you a story from a time when I was just 23 years old. Before the war, my world was simple. It was loud, yes, but it was a good loud. It smelled of hot oil and glowing steel. I was a factory man, you see, from the heart of the Ruhrgebiet. My hands knew the language of machinery. I understood that for every problem, there was a logical solution. A stripped gear, a seized piston, a broken line, you just had to look, understand the system, and apply the right force in the right place. I believed that anything built by man could be fixed by man. That was the gospel of the factory floor. The war taught me that some things, once broken, can never be made whole again. People ask what it was like to believe so strongly in something that you would march 1,000 kilometers from home. They expect an answer about the fatherland, about destiny. And yes, we believed those things. We were told we were a great machine, each of us a vital part, rolling east to fix a broken world. But when you are lying in the rubble of a city that refuses to die, grand ideas burn away like morning fog. It becomes much smaller. It comes down to the man next to you, to the next street, the next house. And for me, on that blistering July day in Voronezh, it all came down to a single, jammed mechanism of death. The heat. That's the first thing I remember. Not the clean heat of the Dortmund forges, but a suffocating, dusty heat that clung to the back of your throat. It was the breath of a crematorium. Voronezh wasn't a city anymore. It was a skeleton picked clean by artillery and bombs. The buildings were broken teeth jutting from the earth, and we, the Sturmbataillon, were the infection crawling through the gums. We moved from one shattered room to the next, our boots crunching on a carpet of plaster, glass, and forgotten lives. My world had shrunk to the 5 men around me. Klaus with his farmer's hands, always whispering about his fiancée. Young Erich, barely 18, his face still smooth but his eyes ancient. And our lieutenant, a stern but fair man who carried the weight of us all on his narrow shoulders. We were a unit, a small, self-contained machine that had to function perfectly or we would all be scrapped. The objective was a 3-story corner building. They said it was a command post. To us, it was just another pile of bricks spitting death. We crossed the street in that way you learn, a low, scuttling run that feels both too fast and agonizingly slow. The air ripped around us. The sound of a Russian machine gun, a Degtyaryov, is like a canvas being torn again and again and again. It has a rhythm, a terrible mechanical rhythm. We spilled into the ground floor of a neighboring building, gasping, hearts hammering against our ribs like frantic pistons. Status, the lieutenant coughed, spitting dust. Everyone sounded off. We were all there for now. The gun is on the 2nd floor, Klaus whispered, peering through a crack in the wall. The one with the green shutters hanging off. It was a textbook problem, a tactical jam. We were pinned. To advance was suicide. To retreat was not an option. The factory man in me started turning the problem over. A machine gun is a system. It has an operator, an ammo supply, a field of fire. Disrupt one part of the system and it fails. We lay down suppressing fire, the lieutenant decided. Günther, Erich, you take the satchel charge, get to the side wall, blow it. We go in through the breach. Simple, logical, a plan like a blueprint. But blueprints don't account for the friction of reality. Erich and I crawled out into the rubble-strewn alley. The sun was a merciless hammer. The air shimmered. My sweat wasn't cooling, it was just hot. I could smell the ghosts of this place. Stale cooking cabbage, cheap perfume, burnt wood. I remembered the smell of my mother's kitchen on a Sunday, the clean scent of soap and roasting pork. The thought was a physical pain, a homesickness so sharp it made my eyes water. Then the Degtyaryov opened up again, stitching a line of dust devils a meter from my head, and the ghost of home vanished in a cloud of cordite. We were trapped behind a collapsed cart. The angle was wrong. We couldn't get close enough for the main charge without being cut in half. The bullets weren't just noise, they were solid things, punching through the wood of the cart, thudding into the brickwork behind us. Erich was flattened against the ground, his face pale, muttering a prayer. He was just a boy. I looked at his rifle, then at my hands. My thoughts were stripped gears, grinding uselessly. The lieutenant's plan, the blueprint, was useless. The system was broken. The roar of the factory in my memory, the ordered, productive chaos of machines working in harmony, was replaced by this new sound. The sound of a machine designed only for unmaking men. And then, clarity. Cold and sharp, if the blueprint is wrong, you don't throw away the machine. You improvise, you build a new tool from the parts you have. Give me your stick grenades, I hissed at Erich. He looked at me, his eyes wide with confusion. Now he fumbled at his belt, handing them over, 2 of them. I took the 3 I had, 5 Steelhind Granite 24s, the potato masher, simple design, a wooden handle, a pull cord, a detonator, and a charge. reliable. I pulled a roll of wire from my pouch. My hands, which once so carefully calibrated gauges and tightened bolts, began to work with a feverish intensity. I unscrewed the heads from 4 of the grenades. The high explosive filling was stable enough. I bundled them tightly around the 5th, complete grenade, its handle sticking out like a deformed limb. I bound them with the wire, pulling it so tight the metal bit into my fingers. This wasn't engineering, this was blasphemy. I was taking these perfectly designed objects and twisting them into something crude, powerful, and unpredictable. A memory surfaced. My father, his face smudged with grease, showing me how to repack a wheel bearing. "Patience, son," he'd said, his voice a low rumble. "Every part has its place. Respect the design." I was respecting nothing. I was violating every principle he ever taught me. I worked in a trance. The tearing sound of the machine gun was just background noise now. Klaus was firing his Kar 98K in short, sharp cracks, trying to give us cover. A bullet ricocheted off the cobblestones near my head, a high-pitched, angry whine. I barely noticed. I had built a monster, a concentrated charge, heavy, ugly, and full of hate. It wouldn't just clear a room, it would gut it. "When I throw this," I said to Erich, my voice low and urgent, "you run, back to the building, do you understand?" He just nodded, his eyes fixed on the device in my hands. My mind was a strange, silent place. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, mechanical focus. I was just a worker on an assembly line. This was my task, the final piece to be fitted. I took a breath, and another. I rose up, just for a second. The world slowed down. I saw the window, the splintered green shutter, the dark maw behind it. My arm swung, a piston driving forward. The bundle of death flew in clumsy, wobbling arc. It hit the wall just below the window and fell onto the sill. Perfect. I screamed at Erich, "Gio!" We scrambled. My feet found no purchase in the loose rubble. I fell, scraping my hands raw. The world was just legs and arms and a desperate need for cover. I threw myself through the shattered doorway we'd left moments before. The sound was not a sound. It was the end of sound. It was a physical blow that picked me up and slammed me into the wall. It wasn't an explosion you hear with your ears. It was a pressure wave that crushed your bones, that vibrated through the soles of your feet and up your spine into the base of your skull. It was a white, blinding light, even with my eyes squeezed shut. The air was sucked out of my lungs, and for a terrifying moment I couldn't breathe. There was no air, only force. Then silence, a profound, swimming, absolute silence. I lay on the floor, the taste of brick dust and blood in my mouth. I could see the lieutenant shouting, his mouth forming words, but nothing came out. Klaus was pulling me to my feet, his face a mask of concern. I couldn't hear him. I could only feel the vibrations of his hands on my arm. They moved past me into the breach. The silence in my head was a universe, a dead universe. Then slowly a noise began to creep back in. Not the sounds of the battle, but a high, piercing ring. A single, pure, unbroken tone. The sound of a machine that has been pushed past its limits and has fundamentally broken. They took the building. The rest of the battle is a blur of silent movies. Muzzle flashes with no crack. Men shouting with no voice. A world disconnected from its own soundscape. The cost of my improvised solution was a piece of myself. I had fixed the tactical problem. I had jammed the enemy's machine. But in doing so, I had broken one of my own small, delicate parts forever. I spent the rest of my life working with machines. I went back to the factory in Dortmund after it was all over. I could still feel the vibrations of the presses through the floor, but the symphony of the place was lost to me. It was muted, distorted by the constant, high-pitched whine in my ears. A souvenir from Voronezh. A ghost signal from a broken city. For years, I believed I could fix anything. The war taught me the truth. You cannot fix a life that has been spent. You cannot unshatter a building. You cannot reassemble a man's mind once it has been blown apart by what he has seen and done. Some things, some people, some countries, they break in ways that you can't put back together. You can only mourn the machine they were supposed to be and live with the noise of the broken gears in your own head. The hardest lesson is this. When logic fails, all you have left is instinct, and instinct is a brutal tool. It will keep you alive, it will save your friends, but it will carve something out of you in the process. You don't choose between a good path and a bad path. You choose between two different kinds of broken. And you spend the rest of your life trying to quiet the noise it leaves behind. This memory is a piece of shrapnel I carry. It's heavy. Help me carry it. Subscribe and ensure these stories are never left to rust in silence.